Weed could protect you from coronavirus, as research suggests that THC could suppress the immune system's response to COVID that causes acute respiratory distress syndrome. Essex Police under investigation by IOPC after restraining and incapacitant spraying the wrong man. The independent inquiry into child sexual abuse determines that the Church of England failed to safeguard children from abuse from people in positions of trust within the church. Convicted terror offender breaches his terms of release from jail, but gets a suspended sentence. This and more coming right up. Don't forget, these reports are, where possible, daily, Monday to Friday. Please remember to subscribe and hit that bell so that you don't miss any future uploads. And if you appreciate the work I do, please consider joining the channel Patreon for as little as just £3 per month. And this will continue to enable me to keep providing this content. Hello, ladies, gentlemen, boys, girls, innies, outies and in-betweeners. My name's Dan. Welcome back to another PAP Reports. It's Tuesday, the 6th of October, 2020. Get your grinders and bongs ready, folks. Dust them off, as researchers at the University of South Carolina say that THC could help prevent a harmful immune response that causes acute respiratory distress syndrome, or ARDS. Researchers at the university have performed a trio of studies on mice which found that THC, the chemical that gives cannabis its mind-altering effect, could help prevent a harmful immune response that causes ARDS, which turns out to be the most common complication for those with severe cases of coronavirus, which can be fatal or lead to permanent scarring of the lungs. The study infected mice with COVID-19 and then gave some of the mice THC. The mice with THC survived, while those that didn't get any died. The researchers have said that their research is far from conclusion and that they are not currently encouraging people to self-medicate by getting stoned. However, the preliminary research showed immense promise of THC as a treatment for severe cases. Prakash Nagarkati, who co-authored the studies, said, "The underlying mechanism is your immune system goes haywire and starts destroying your lungs and all of your other organs. It's like a car when you're putting on a lot of accelerator but the brakes aren't working. Basically, that's what's going to happen, is your car is going to crash because you can't stop it, and that's basically what's happening with ARDS." The university study found that THC, which stands for tetrahydrocannabinol. The study found that THC, which stands for tetrahydrocannabinol, helps suppress the body's immune system while also increasing healthy bacteria within the lungs. The findings were so promising that the researchers are now looking to begin human trials for further examination of the potential effectiveness of the chemical in fighting coronavirus. Nagarkati emphasised, however, that they are not suggesting that marijuana is good for COVID-19, as if you start using THC too early, you could suppress your immune system, which could make the effect of COVID worse. So in other words, dust your bongs off and clean out your grinders in preparation. You know, just in case. Besides, another study published by Canadian researchers in June found that a specific strain of cannabis could help block the virus from entering the body in the first place. It said, similar to other respiratory pathogens, SARS-CoV-2 is transmitted through respiratory droplets with potential for aerosol and contact spread. It uses receptor-mediated entry into the human host via something. It uses receptor-mediated entry into the human host via angiotensin-converting enzyme 2, or ACE2, that is expressed in lung tissue, as well as oral and nasal mucosa, kidney, testes, and the gastrointestinal tract. The study says modulation of ACE2 levels in these gateway tissues may prove a plausible strategy for decreasing disease susceptibility. While each of the aforementioned studies are still in the early stages, together they are said to paint a promising picture of marijuana's role in fighting the global pandemic. So in other words, get the world stoned. Remember the saying, it's not what you know, it's who you know. Well, I would imagine that seeing as police and crime commissioners have power over chief constables, although they never seem to use it, you would expect that they have a higher ranking at the local lodge. You know, rooms off limits to the likes of the Chief Constable. Well, Humberside Police and Crime Commissioner Keith Hunter has been let off by the Crown Prosecution Service even after he admitted manhandling a member of the public during an incident at his office. Hunter held a man's arm behind his back before pushing him out of the building in Cottingham after he initially refused to leave a reception area, having turned up uninvited. The man subsequently complained that he had been assaulted by Mr. Hunter and reported him to Humberside police. They then referred the complaint to the IOPC. After an IOPC investigation, they concluded that there was an indication a criminal offence may have been committed by Police and Crime Commissioner Hunter, and that it was appropriate for that to be considered by the Crown Prosecution Service. However, the CPS said there was insufficient evidence to consider prosecution for assault, even though we see general members of the public charged for the same with zero evidence other than a copper's word. The now published IOPC report into the case says the threshold for an IOPC referral is lower than the threshold applied by the CPS when they consider whether to charge someone with a criminal offence. The IOPC said the unnamed complainant alleged Mr. Hunter had acted in an aggressive manner, grabbing him by the arm and grappling with him before pushing him outside through an open door. I wanted to speak to him about some issues regarding policing in Cottingham, and the next thing I knew, he lunged at me and I was out the door, he told an IOPC investigator. He claimed that he suffered several bruises on his arms as a result of the encounter with Hunter. When interviewed by the same investigator, Mr. Hunter said he volunteered to see the man after two members of staff reported him acting aggressively in the reception area. He had already made an earlier telephone call to the office when he allegedly threatened to chain himself to the building in a protest over what he believed was a lack of policing action in Cottingham. Mr. Hunter said he could smell alcohol on the man's breath and noticed his eyes were glazed and that his speech was slurred. Now, I can't say if the guy had been drinking, but there's no evidence of that. But isn't it a surprise the Police and Crime Commissioner sounding just like a police constable with accusations that can never be proven or disproven? But then again, maybe that's just because he was a copper for 30 years. Old habits die hard, I guess. Hunter told the investigator I pushed gently against his upper body. He used both hands to grab the side of the door frame. I used one arm to knock his hands off the frame in an upward motion. At no time did I use anything other than the absolute minimum force to get the person out of the premises. I felt he was a potential threat to the staff and equipment. Mr. Hunter said he deliberately took charge of the situation from his staff because of concerns over their safety. He denied losing his temper, but agreed with the complainant describing himself as being manhandled. It could be described as that, I suppose, he told the IOPC investigator. Now, can you imagine the hard-on that the police and CPS would get if we pushed a copper out of our front door just because they were there uninvited? Even if using the same amount of force allegedly used in this incident, I can see several week custodial sentences for assault an emergency worker, even if they had no lawful right to be in your property in the first place. Essex Police have made a voluntary referral to the IOPC following an incident in Loughton on Saturday the 3rd of October. It's been said that while police were searching for a driver in the area who had run off from a vehicle with cloned number plates, they saw a man whose clothes, it's claimed, matched those of the suspect. Now, where have we heard that before?
Yeah, I think he's getting potentially looking to bail here. Just travelling and she stalled it.
The driver legs it and manages to give the officers the slip. Unidentified by the helicopter, and Richard introduces himself.
You alright, mate? How you doing? Right, you've been followed by a helicopter from a transit van in Brighouse. Okay. Now tell me the truth now, or else you'll be getting in a lot of trouble, yeah?
I haven't been in
Okay.
But denies any involvement. However, his top matches the suspect's description.
No, it doesn't.
Well, he's been in a transit down in Brighouse. Yeah. Abandoned transit and then run off, followed by a helicopter up here. It's full of stolen fuel in the back of it. Right, obviously we're just going to have to get the officers that followed it and he's run off from to come up and ID him, see if this is the same male, yeah?
Well, the grooming gangs are safe for a while, aren't they? How many cops have they got here for one lad that's detained in a vehicle?
The officer from the earlier pursuit arrives to identify the lad. Is this young man really a criminal mastermind?
No, he's a smaller than that.
Alright, it's not him then.
It's a case of mistaken identity by the helicopter.
The man was detained and he tried to pull away, at which point police ended up restraining the man with handcuffs and spraying him with incapacitant spray. Although I don't know in what order. Checks then established that the man was not wanted in connection with a suspicious car and he was eventually allowed on his way. No doubt without a sorry and the police trying to make a joke of it. The circumstances surrounding the detention of the man, including the use of handcuffs and incapacitant spray, are now subject of an ongoing investigation. Assistant Chief Constable Andy Proffitt said on Monday, "We were searching for someone who had run from a suspicious car after failing to stop for police. At that stage, our officers had a description of clothing, but not of the man himself. They initially detained the wrong person, and we're taking steps to get in touch with him to offer our apologies for this case of mistaken identity." Well, bully for you. MPs do not care about you. It's true, no matter what they say to get elected, no matter what promises they make, most MPs are literally only in it for themselves, because no matter what happens to us, the public, they will still keep all of their inalienable rights apart from the odd government sacrifice to pretend they're keeping the MPs in check. This has been seen over the past 6 months as our rights, fundamental, inalienable, human, whatever word you want to use to describe them, have been eroded due to an overreaction and piss-poor management of the whole COVID situation. Legislations introduced when there was already legislation to deal with the pandemic, punishments for carrying out protected activities and rights, with almost all of our elected officials either backing them or simply not standing up for us until it's too late. And now we have MPs backing the newest legislation that we spoke about last week about the alleged security forces being given immunity to commit crimes, even without specifying what crimes they are allowed to commit, which many human rights activists and organisations are rightly worried about. However, the scariest part of this list is the list of organisations the legislation will cover, and it oddly incorporates such entities as the Environment Agency, the Financial Conduct Authority, Food Standards Agency, Gambling Commission, and the Medicines and Healthcare Regulation Authority. Now, what exactly would the Financial Authority, Food Standards Agency, or the Medicines and Healthcare Regulation Authority want to be allowed to commit crimes for? And what crimes could they commit with immunity? Although I think we know the Medicines and Healthcare Regulation Authority want to commit crimes against our human rights, but wow, this is giving the government unparalleled power over the public to do just about anything they want. The crimes committed by these agencies will now not be scrutinised by a panel at the CPS, but instead will be reviewed by a single senior judge. Nothing quite like getting one single uncorruptible person to make sure they're not breaking the law. Oh, wait. Opening the debate earlier on Monday, Home Office Minister James Brokenshire said the bill would help keep our community safe. Your community safe, yeah. He said it would ensure operational agencies and public authorities have access to tools to keep us safe from terrorists, safe from serious organised crime groups, and safe from those who wish to cause harm to our country and citizens, whilst protecting those who want to cause harm to our country and citizens. Bear in mind that if you think about it, failing to comply with COVID regulations could be deemed as causing harm to the country and citizens as well. However, it's said that a number of MPs from across the House have raised concerns around safeguards to ensure agents would not be able to commit crimes such as murder or torture. Tory MP Steve Baker said, "For those of us who like the red meat of law and order, it has forced us to look inside the abattoir, and we don't like what we see. I can't imagine ministers will be authorising killing or torture, but that should be on the face of the bill so the public can have confidence." Labour's Yvette Cooper, who chairs the Home Affairs Select Committee, also said the safeguards were very vague and very broad, calling for them to be strengthened to get this legislation right. The bill will return to the Commons for its next stages on the 15th of October. Ex-Very Special Constable Michael Shortland, a former Northamptonshire volunteer police constable, has been accused of gross misconduct for using the force's intelligence systems for purposes other than that of policing purposes. The offences are alleged to have occurred on 8 separate days between September the 9th, 2018 and January 21st, 2019, and related to himself and members of the public. A disciplinary hearing will be held by Northamptonshire Police at its headquarters on Wednesday and Thursday, October 7th and 8th, to hear the charges that he carried out searches and or accessed confidential information without lawful authority and or reasonable excuse. A pharmacist who issued the wrong drug to a man has not been charged with negligence. 55-year-old Nicholas Eaton was taking 5 milligrams of pethidine for back pain after being involved in an accident. However, due to shortages, the pharmacist gave him the same dose of methadone instead. 5 milligrams of methadone is equivalent to 10 times the strength of his regular medication. Nicholas was then found dead just 5 days after starting his course of medication by his son on November the 6th last year. A post-mortem report concluded the painter and decorator died due to a combination of chronic obstructive pulmonary disease and methadone toxicity. Daughter Carly said his health was the best he'd been for some time whilst he was taking pethidine. But when he began taking the methadone, she described her dad as becoming more tired, drowsy, and finding it difficult to walk. After his death, she saw the methadone medication leaflet warned not to take it if the person had a lung condition, which he did. In fact, he had COPD, which the pharmacist should have asked him about before giving the medication. Dr. Hashim Zusandahafer, the pharmacist from Howsham Medical Group, said he believed the methadone to be equal strength to the pethidine. And during the subsequent criminal investigation, it was determined that the doctor had made a fatal but unintentional error. Oh yeah, oops, just a slip up. Could have happened to anyone. His family is now looking to launch civil proceedings after the inquest found his death to be accidental, while the CPS decided the case did not cross the threshold for manslaughter on the grounds of medical negligence. GP Sabina Spencer insisted the health group's policy had been thoroughly checked following Mr. Eaton's death and a number of improvements made to ensure a similar mistake never happens again. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but a mistake or error, as in failure to take proper care over something or breach of a duty of care which results in damage, is negligence. I'm sure if you don't agree, you'll let me know in the comments, but it seems like negligence to me. Coroner Alan Craze said, what you gave him was in fact 10 times the amount it should have been. It was a catastrophic error, as is recognised by everybody in this room, but we can't change history, sadly. This error wasn't made deliberately, it wasn't made criminally. And there you have it. I wonder how many people will now be let off when they cause death by driving without due care and attention, seeing as his death wasn't made deliberately and wasn't made criminally. Coroner Alan Craze reached a conclusion of a medical prescription accident and expressed his condolences to the family. A report by ICSA, the Independent Inquiry into Child Sexual Abuse, has determined that nearly 400 people in positions of trust within the Church of England have been convicted of sexual offences against children since the 1940s, suggesting that the Church had failed to protect. A report by ICSA, the Independent Inquiry into Child Sexual Abuse, has determined that nearly 400 people in positions of trust within the Church of England have been convicted of abuse offences against children since the 1940s, suggesting that the Church had failed to protect children and young people from predators within its ranks and instead created a culture where abusers could hide. In 2018 alone, there were 2,504 safeguarding concerns reported to dioceses about either children or vulnerable adults and 449 concerns about recent child abuse. A significant amount of offending involved the downloading or possession of indecent images of kids. The report also found that alleged perpetrators were given more support than victims and accused the Church of neglecting the well-being of children in favour of protecting its own reputation. An example of this was former Dean of Manchester Cathedral, Robert Waddington, who was a subject of a number of child abuse allegations over many years. Despite that, his permission to officiate Despite this, his permission to officiate was allowed to continue on the grounds of his age and frailty, seemingly without any consideration of the risks to the children with whom he came into contact. The ICSA report also criticised the church's attitude to forgiveness, which it found were regarded by many members as an appropriate response to any admission of wrongdoing, and accuses the church of failing to properly fund safeguarding until as recently as 2015, recommending a new mandatory support scheme for victims and survivors. It is based on public hearings held in July 2019, which heard evidence from senior church leaders, safeguarding experts and victims and survivors on their views of the church failings and the reparations offered. I'm not sure what's worse, police committing these crimes or the church. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. South Yorkshire Police Constable PC Christopher Rhodes is to face a misconduct hearing tomorrow, the 7th of October. Rhodes is accused of punching and handcuffing a handcuffed prisoner in the back of a police vehicle in May 2017. South Yorkshire Police said this is a hearing into the conduct of PC Rhodes, a police officer from South Yorkshire Police who is subject to the following allegations. On 30th of May 2017, he attended a scene in Rotherham on 2 occasions. On the second occasion, a member of the public appeared drunk, and that person, witness 1, was arrested. Witness 1 was then handcuffed and placed into the rear of the police vehicle, with the officers sat next to them. It is alleged that PC Rhodes applied force to witness 1, which was not necessary, proportionate or reasonable in the circumstances. In particular, witness 1 was repeatedly punched in the face. Witness 1 suffered severe swelling to the face and a laceration, which needed to be glued at hospital. The above alleged conduct breaches the standards of professional behaviour relating to the use of force and, if proven, would amount to gross misconduct. If the allegations are proven, then Rhodes could face a written warning or dismissal. Place your bets now. "28-year-old Shahid Khan, who was convicted of engaging in conduct in preparation for terrorist acts in 2013 and imprisoned for 40 months, has now been given a suspended sentence for breaching the terms of his release. Khan was made the subject of a 10-year notification order obligating him to keep authorities up to date with his personal details following his release. On Tuesday, the defendant from Perry Bar appeared at the Old Bailey for sentence, having admitted 4 breaches by failing to inform police of new replacement bank cards and a mobile phone. Between November 2019 and May 2020, he acquired 2 replacement bank cards linked to his main West account and opened a Monzo account without telling police. He was required to notify police of any changes in his financial information within 3 days, the court was told. Investigations also revealed he was using a mobile phone that police were unaware of. Kieran Cunningham, prosecuting, said, whilst no harm has been identified by the defendant's offending, the Crown submit that the risk of harm is high given the nature of the defendant's terrorism offending history. Anthony Muller, defending, said the offences were an illustration of the sometimes chaotic way this young man lives his life. Chaotic. I'd say being involved with terrorist activities is classed as a little more than chaotic. Anthony Muller said he clearly did not appreciate the detail in which he would have to keep authorities notified of his activities. Didn't appreciate the detail. The offences were serious against the background of his previous conviction, and the orders were to protect the public, said Mr. Justice Sweeney, adding that he was satisfied the offences owed more to a casual attitude towards the notification order than a deliberate flouting of it. So more casual than deliberate. I've known people to get taken back to prison for being in their backyard putting their rubbish out whilst on tag for a minor offence, never mind engaging in conduct in preparation for terrorist acts. Mr. Justice Sweeney sentenced Khan to 4 months imprisonment, suspended for 2 years, plus 10 days rehabilitation activity requirement. Well, that will teach him not to break his release conditions. Huge thank you to channel supporters one and all, especially our channel Patreon supporters. Your support really does help. And that is all I have for you today. Please like, share, comment and subscribe. Let me know your thoughts, as know many of you will. And well, until next time, stay safe, look after each other, film the police and other officials.
Good night, all.
Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. If you like the content and you'd like to help support the channel, you can do so. In the description of every video there are some links to ways that you're able to help support the channel so I can continue putting out content. If you're unable to help us in that way, hit that subscribe button up the top there. If you haven't already, become a subscriber. That is support enough. Share the videos, comment, like, it all helps. If you're looking for something else to watch, up top there is my latest video. Down the bottom there is a video that YouTube recommends for you.